Hello YouTube viewers, welcome to my channel Science to Technology. In today's show, Camera Tuesday, we're going to talk about understanding camera uses part 2. I have already talked about some parts and this is some extra parts. So let's assume your use case is student. What does that mean? That simply means you are tight on budget. Let's be very real. If you're a student, you're not swimming in money unless you are like, top 1% of that 1% of that 1%. So most scenarios you are dealing with very tight budget, and unfortunately for you, you need every function under the sun, meaning for a normal individual luts do not matter. For you it does matter. For normal individual raw recording does not matter, but for you it does matter. So you need every function possible in your camera which is used in the industry, because here's it will not transfer dicto. Let's say you learned something on this camera, it does not mean it will transfer to this or from this, but you want to experience all of that. So you know what these pipelines are, because if you know the pipeline, jumping into, let's say, a dedicated ecosystem or a professional paid gig, it's much easier. If you do not know the context, then it's like so for that reason you want everything under the sun. Like in-body camera raw file becomes a very desirable must. Again, can you live without it? Yes, but it's not recommended, especially people who have the what we call eye for a color. Not everybody has it, but like there is a feel to it. Now if you want to take a raw file and you apply LUTs to it, apply some color feel to it, you can take one shot taken from one camera, one lens, one lighting, and you can tweak it such a way that it can convey different meanings. Like literally same scene can be showed as like optimistic, and same scene can be rendered in such a way where it's like looks like very dab and depressing. Even the character could be smiling. So that's just happens because of the lighting and color theory and tampering with that, tuning with that. It's a very subtle thing, but again, if you have compressed data, it's not that easy to do. Even with H.264 and chroma sampling of 4:2, you need raw. Again, it's not compulsory, but if you want to truly learn, you need to know what you can do and you cannot do. You do not want to have a bottleneck of like, oh, what I can do and cannot do, not because of the sensor limitation, but because of the data compression limitation. So that's a desirable function. Now, thankfully, because of the advent of basically patent lock from Red, camera companies got uniquely clever. So there is a deal between camera companies and companies that make external recorder. It's like, hey, I'm gonna give you HDMI raw output, and you're gonna compact it, basically make it into a file. And again, why Red has the patent lock on like compressed raw recording in body, not the raw recording itself. That would be stupid, but patent is locked in such a way it's like you cannot compress the raw file. Again, if you get a true raw file, it's huge, it's stupendously huge, but you can do it externally. So if you buy basically lot of camera nowadays, thankfully there is a lot of cameras that give you first full-size HDMI, second raw output on those HDMI, that you can have a basically Ninja V and Atmos series equipments where you can just like capture red raw basically format, Blackmagic raw formats, and ProRes formats, and then you can go YOLO on it for surprisingly cheap. So that's a very good way of bypassing that limitation. Are there cinema cameras that can do raw recording? Absolutely, but we do not ask about the price of it. So low cost accessories ecosystem is desirable, meaning can you just buy the lens? Because there are lenses that are for like cinema grade, but we do not talk about the price, but you do want lenses. So everything is looked into a holistic way, where it's like, can I afford it? And in terms of basically accessories, sub accessories like lightings and camera batteries, you generally want to use that Sony and PF battery, which are like used with other everything. Also, you want one battery, like one ecosystem as far as possible. So these are the things that you want. However, you have to be realistic. You can't have everything. Your demand list is huge. What are you compromising for that demand list? Well, generally usability and auto functions. Meaning, let's say you look into Blackmagic camera. They are genuinely good in terms of all the feature I have talked about. Really good. But the moment you turn on their autofocus, it's like, lol, what is autofocus? So you have to let it go. Another part is like, if you look into these cameras, they have a lot of good things, but they also have clunky interfaces. So you have to let that part go. Basically, you have to learn to work the camera. Camera is not working for you. You have to work it. So that's a requirement. That's the penalty that you are willing to pay if you are in this ecosystem, in this use case scenario. However, it does come with one good thing, that you get to try new upcoming things, because it's like the same thing with like, oh, this is a Ferrari, but it's useless. Why it's useless? You can't afford it. It's like it's only useful if you can do something with it, right? Like if I can buy it and use it, it's awesome. Nobody can buy it, nobody can use it, it's useless. It's like, that's why Rolls-Royce car division is bankrupt, and that's why Toyota prints money like there is no tomorrow. So same thing here happens here also. You can get the luxury of buying Kfinity cameras. Z cameras, again, I cannot go to a professional established seasoned player. It's like, hey, switch from your red camera to this. They're like, bro, I can afford red, I do not need to switch. And RE people were like, no. So, but Hazley, you are a student, you got nothing. In those scenarios, you will risk this, and this has multiple benefits. First, if you get used to it, and if this is good enough, you do not have to switch. That's the first benefit you get. But again, there is competition in the market. You never want a market to be stale where only few companies exist. So this is a very good use case scenario where you have to be a bit mindful of what you are getting and what you are sacrificing. Now let's come to another use case, documentary filmmaking. So in those sort of scenarios, what do you need? You need reliable, meaning that's the thing. You need it absolutely robust. Whereas like I put new batteries in, I put new card in, I turn it on, it bloody turns on. There is no discussion where it's like, oh, I use it in like, hot, humid environment and I have to put ice pack on it. No. Basically, they will never touch a red camera for this. Modern red cameras are better, but their earlier variants were like horrid for it. So no documentary filmmaker will touch it, because again, it's a once in a lifetime shot was missed because your camera was overheated. No. So it needs to be very reliable. Now, you pay for things in this scenario. You pay for autofocus, because again, you cannot have the luxury of a focus puller or autofocus not being good enough. And then inbuilt ND filters are also desirable, because again, especially if you are shooting anything that is outdoor and you do not control it, lighting could change on a moment's notice, and like you're not gonna like, okay, scene is going on, then you go inside or put in lens cap in front. That's not gonna happen. So inbuilt ND filters are desirable in this scenario. Dual card slots, because many things are like once in a lifetime. You cannot like, oops, my card failed. Yeah, that's not happening. So dual card slot, long battery life, these are the core requirements that a documentary filmmaker will look for. Now, there is another aspect. You may not think about it, but experienced documentary makers will tell you. It must have service center and availability, meaning you cannot build an equipment that never breaks down. That's not happening. But what's the next best thing? Next best thing is that you have a service center, meaning let's say you are in Africa, you can just go to South Africa and be like, hey, there's a service center there. Kenya also has service centers. So you always want to buy camera companies that have this sort of ecosystem. Again, if you work in India, you will look at what India has like to offer in terms of like service center. If you work in some parts of Europe, you will look into what they have. So only then you can reach a point where it's like, I got this, I can trust you. Because here's just dropping a lens hard enough, you can misalign it. You cannot break. If you are lucky, you will not break anything. But again, it requires realignment, and that cannot be done by you on the field at least. And again, only professional people can do that. So you can go into Sony service center, they can tune it for you. Again, it's not available everywhere, but it is one of those things where it's like, this is some amount of money that you are paying for. So all of those Zcam and Gayfinity, what is service? The best they can do for you is like, hey, ship the camera to us. This, they're like, I got this. And again, in some scenarios like Olympic specifically, every camera manufacturer like Sony, Nikon, Canon, they literally have a booth set up where you can just drop, basically you have to pay a very huge premium for it. But the idea is that even if you wreck your camera, basically you destroy it, they can give you loan out a different one until as long as they are working on it. So you do not have downtime. Again, for serious priceless moments that's like shut up, take money, people pay for that. And size matters here. You do not have the luxury, I'm going to carry an IMAX camera. Yeah, no. So you need small and compact as possible, as small, as compact as possible. Now in this field, Sony and Canons are a very big king, because you must have noticed that Canon cameras are generally not used for cinema system. So why the heck Canon has a whole line of C series cameras? Who are buying that? Documentary filmmakers love them, and they were like really good at it. And why Sony is there? Well, Sony is also loves video. They make broadcast camera, as in broadcast TV camera. They were the first full HD digital cinema camera, which is Star Wars. So they have ecosystem. They are basically coming to stills world, like still frame, but the video was already sorted. So handycam ecosystem, they are already sorted. Broadcast camera already sorted. So Canon, again, they already have the lens sorted. They already have the ecosystem sorted, as in like service center and all that jazz. And benefit of that, these two camera companies are very, like if you just randomly throw a dart, there is a good chance that you will find a documentary filmmaker using one of these puppy. So documentary is also a very unique use case scenario. Now let's go to high speed or slow motion. So what does that mean? That simply means if you need to get into like true slow motion, not just like 100 frame per second or 120 frame per second, like properly 1000 plus, In those sort of scenario, you need dedicated hardware. These hardwares are not made for cinema. These hardwares have different use cases, and you can use it for cinema. So that's a completely different world. Meaning, if you want to truly be like, I got this, I'm the guy who people call for high speed shooting. That's a different ecosystem, completely different ecosystem. So you need hardware that is built for that speed. So what does that mean is has a whole separate ecosystem. Here's the in Red and Canon scenario, the camera company does try to work for you. Here, no, you are working for them. You are buying their equipment, but like you have to trust them. Other than that, nothing is there. It's like they will not apologize. It's like, hey, it's clunky as hell. They do not care. You have to do it, because be mindful. While you may think that are used in high speed cameras used in movies and all that, yeah, no, this use case scenario is minimal for them. What is primary use? Industrial players, scientific research, media uses like last, like if that 10 options are there, one of the last options are like media users. So when we had like boom events, like making kaboom, when Oppenheimer was making kabooms, in those times he needed very high speed cameras. A lot of high speed cameras were developed in that time frame. Then we started to make very high speed. So again, even hyper speed cameras were made. So that's the primary use case scenario. Movie and media and Mythbusters and YouTube shorts, those are like spin off, but that's a different world. So you need a lot of setup for quote unquote the take, the shot, because be mindful, if you have physical practical effects, these things cannot be redone unless you have you have to rebuild a set. So they are very strict about this. This is critical. For example, what does that take a shot means? Well, here's the deal. These cameras are so fast that you only have few seconds of record time. Few seconds, like sometimes, and especially at very high resolution, you may have like barely few seconds. So how do you make sure that you capture it? Here's the assume that it's you are taking trying to shoot a cricketer in high speed. So you take a batsman and you're like, okay, but he misses it, like you do not feel the shot, then you do it again. How are you storing it? You are not storing it. These things will not capture all of that. What it will do is you arm it. Now it will start to capture everything, and all the file are recurring into RAM. So RAM is like a continuous reel. RAM is recording it. The moment you press the trigger, so let's say the third shot, it was like, it's like perfect shot happened, then you trigger it. So what does trigger mean? Trigger means basically few seconds backwards. You press the trigger, few seconds backward, it will stop the function. Few seconds backward from RAM, it will dump it into primary memory. So that's how you can take a shot, so to say. Yes, you have to think in backwards. You press the trigger. Now, of course, you will work your ass off to press the trigger as fast as possible, because it only has few seconds of past buffer. And again, few seconds of past buffer could literally mean 8 or 9 hours of footage. That's how fast these things are. So it takes a lot of hard work. Let that be very clear. Like cinema is one thing, high speed photography, it's a different world, completely different. Now we come to the movie, the big puppies. So movie is basically one simple word: quality above all. Nothing else, like quality. What are you paying for? Quality. What you're what does it mean to have a whole crew, one person who's just stabilizing the camera, one person who's pulling focus, one person dedicated for how the heck it looks and framing. So what do you get out of it? Why do you deal with so much hassle, so much trouble? This is a huge camera. Why are you doing that? Well, benefit is simple. You control the feel of it. For example, let's say you take a scene, right? And you have two people going there. Now, is that scene romantic, or that scene some sort of anxious? You can capture that, because here's the XY dimension is locked. That's a frame, XY. But here's the third dimension, the focus pulling in it, that has a speed vector to it. If you made it very sharp and focused, people like, whoa, something happened. It triggers subconsciously, whoa, something happened. So that would be anxious. If you want to show anxiety in the scene, that's why you will make sure all the focus pulling is sharp, but it's very slow and methodic. It's okay, that's what they are paying for. That's what people do. It's to chill, to control the focus pull. So benefit of that is all these camera offer you is exactly what you want. You want the camera to give you a feel, it gives you the goddamn feel. You want a focus puller to give you a feel, he gives you that feel. So that's all you are doing for. And here's the deal. You do not talk about cost. Why? Here's the deal. These cameras are free. Yeah, IMAX camera, it's free. Look into Oppenheimer's bill. It's not that expensive. So camera is not expensive. It's the crew that is required. Those puppies are expensive. So those people, yeah, they're going to cost you a lot of money. And this is why you have to understand, in cinema industry, when they're talking about hundreds of millions of dollars, it's not going into camera. It's barely going into camera. Barely camera, I've seen 7 to 8 million. Some. of them. So, and be mindful, the highest I've seen digital wise is RE's 65 which is so expensive they do not actually let you the ability to buy it. You have to rent it only. So cost is no object, meaning they're gonna get the best glass. Like, they are crazy about the glass. They are like, bro, I need this Soviet Union lens that has like the best swirling bokeh, and I need that. You will get it. Pay attention, Dune. There is a lot of swirling bokeh. So like, we're gonna get that lens. I do not know how exactly they got that part, but you get the point. Like, it's about the feel, how exactly it looks. So they will. The movies have been shifted because the lens was not available. It was rented to someone else. They're like, okay, we're gonna wait until we get that goddamn lens. So yes, they are that finicky about it. Lighting. For example, I'm using a very low grade lights. These are like 80 CRI, color rendering index. Now, any lights that are used in cinema generally is above 95%. So you get the point. Like, they spent money like there is no tomorrow. And setup. Let's not even go there. So you work for what you want to get, and it gives you. That's the benefit of it. Having all the hassle, having like 3 to 4 people just dealing with a one goddamn camera, it may look like a madness, but there is a benefit to it. Like, at the end of it, if you've done everything right, at the end you get the shot, the feel, the look of it that you are paying for, and it's worth it. Again, you are paying, like, big actresses is like, retakes are expensive. So this is what your use case of movie is completely different from everything else. So this was my presentation on certain use cases. How does it affect your budget? How does it affect how you look into camera? Because every camera can do everything. It's just that it can only master some parts very effectively, others not so much. So this was my presentation. Hopefully you have liked it, learned from it. In that case, please click the like button, share it amongst your friends. That will help me a lot. If you didn't like it, didn't enjoy it, I urge you to press dislike, press it twice to show me extra disappointment. Please leave a comment because I do try to reply to all of them. Subscribe, press the bell icon if you're free, and as always, thanks for watching.